My name's Alex Gibney, director of the film We Steal Secrets, the Story of WikiLeaks.
This was the biggest leak in the history of this particular planet.
The Army has detained a U.S. soldier in connection with the leak of this classified video.
We promised the source that we would publish everything.
About 1 o'clock in the morning, I took delivery on a USB stick of 390,000 secret US military records.
Scared the hell out of a lot of people.
I think this film shares with some of the other films I've done a certain amount of concern with both abuse of power and also hubris on the part of the United States government, but certainly also on the part of Julian Assange, who at his moment of greatest fame ends up becoming all too much like the enemies he sought to take out or expose. It's an odd thing the way this film is constructed, because two people at the center don't really speak directly to me at all. Julian Assange never spoke to me directly. I had endless negotiations with him where we sat across a table and tried to work it out. But despite the fact that he seems to have done interviews with everybody else on the planet, he wouldn't do one with me. And yet I think, oddly, that decision by him ended up creating maybe a more sympathetic portrait of him than otherwise would have been done. Because by the time I came to him, he was so self-regarding that he was like one of those athletes who always talks about themselves in the third person. But we were able to obtain footage of him before he became famous, footage of him just as he was becoming famous, where you see a much more idealistic, a much more self-deprecating, much more interesting character than he would ultimately become. So in a way, I think if I had sat down and done that interview with Julian Assange, which I wish I had done, nevertheless, I suspect that it wouldn't have taught us a lot, except you would have seen the echo chamber of his mind working out his own publicity strategy, rather than an honest investigation into his own organization and life. Nobody has access to Bradley Manning. But oddly, that was the beauty of it, is that he gave us all access to him in these incredibly intimate and personal chats that were published ultimately by Wired magazine. That's why we made the decision to use those chats, because those chats were very unfiltered. They were not part of any kind of publicity campaign. Bradley Manning is an intriguing figure for all of us, and he and what happens to him will say a lot about who we are as a country. It's a fact now that Bradley Manning has pled guilty to leaking secrets to WikiLeaks and expects to take the consequences for that action. In that sense, he's saying, look, I did something that I know was wrong in a literal sense, and I'm willing to pay that price because I believe that leaking the information served a broader purpose. But Bradley Manning was going through his own personal crisis. And I think part of the problem with whistleblowing is you need, in some way, shape, or form, to take some credit, to let somebody know what you've done, and also to debate the internal turmoil of what this process is all about. So he confides a tremendous amount of information to Adrian Lamo. And Lamo says he will hold it in confidence, but he doesn't. He, in fact, leaks it to Wired magazine and also goes to the federal government, which is what ultimately allows Bradley Manning to be arrested. I hope that the federal government will see the light of day and show some sense of balance and justice and mercy for this kid. They're actually seeking to try him for a capital offense. Aiding the enemy is a capital offense. And his trial, which starts on June 4th, if he's convicted of that charge, while the prosecution has said they won't seek the death penalty, the judge has the right to impose it. That's such a chilling thing. It's terrifying what's happening to Bradley Manning, and the conditions in which he was kept were absolutely atrocious. He was effectively tortured in a U.S. naval prison. People need to look at Bradley Manning and take him out of the white hat, black hat zone and look at the important gray here and see what he has to say about our important values in a democracy. The story of Bradley Manning is not so simple, but it's terribly important and really fundamental to the balance between the need to know and the need to share in this country.